There was a time when you were heartless, brutal, a monster. And I'm proud of you for changing all that, but I'm here to ask you to be those things once more. For them. For me. Can I count on you? Bigby, can I count on you?
Always.
Yo, what is up you lot? My name is SIF. Welcome back guys to a brand new video where we're going to be discussing the Wolf Among Us Season 2. And it seems all we are talking about is the Wolf Among Us Season 2 release date every couple months, every here and there. I'll maybe making a video about the release date of this game and that game, and it's a bit depressing. But to put things into perspective, back in September 2019, I made a video discussing how the Wolf Among Us Season 2 is due to be released somewhat soon. Now, I hate the word soon because it's very subject to your own interpretations and therefore not the best choice of words, but soon means closer rather than further, 1 instead of 2, less instead of more. You get the point. Anyway, the video was focused on how Telltale have actually been introducing temporary freelancing contracts to get and attract key talents who worked on the first game. This alongside the more recent advertising priority of the Wolf Among Us on the Telltale website gave hints that we could be seeing it sooner rather than later. Needless to say, you guys got excited from the news, and here were some of the comments on that video I made back in September 2019. So clearly the fans want this, and I personally want this. The reason I'm making this video is because, again, recently they included job postings for the game. Now, this isn't the exact major topic of the video, but it's a very important key part of the video. It's been about 10 months since I made that video back then, and in today's video we're going to be discussing the release date depending on how further and how much progress they've made since that video I made back in September. Very little news has happened since then, but things have changed. They are no longer looking for temporary freelancing contracts, but actually looking for qualified people to work full-time permanently, which is of course always good for financial stability. The game has left pre-production stages. It's quite reliant on using the Unreal Engine and not the Telltale tool, which, come on, let's be fair, the Telltale tool was outdated and old. And I'll cut to the chase. Release date predictions. You might be a bit sad by the end of this video. People need to come to the fact and come to terms that although this is good news and we are getting some sort of news from Telltale once again, the game is still premature and very early in development. If you're discussing video game development terms, on the more generous side, I would label this an alpha stage, but I will still lean more towards the first playable or pre-alpha as it's more known. If you're not familiar with these terms, I got you, don't worry.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart.
Pre-alpha can be described and is known as one of the earliest stages in video game development. It's described as the period in which video game development contains functional major gameplay elements. It is often based on the prototype created in pre-production. So what that means is anything we talked about in pre-production stages will actually be kind of put into the actual practical work. So often you will hear about the term "it sounds good on paper." Well, you can pretty much take that saying and apply it here. Anything that sounded good on paper will actually be kind of used and seen if it can work in a practical side of things. But if you want to be optimistic and push for an alpha development phase instead of a pre-alpha development phase, it would be described as the stage where key gameplay functionality is implemented and assets are partially finished. A game in alpha is feature complete, that is, game is playable and contains all the major features. These features may be further revisited based on testing and feedback. Additionally, small new features may be added, similarly planned, but unimplemented features may be dropped. So once again, the alpha stage can be described as a stage that is often filled with uncertainty and testing. Nothing is solid, nothing is concrete, and to be fair, if you believe it could be a pre-alpha or it could be an alpha, you'd be both right, because right now they're just exited pre-production stage and now into production. They're testing things that they wrote out on paper and see if it would work in a practical world. So The game is most likely in the alpha stages for sure. Many people often combine these two stages as one because they're not far apart, but although hope has ignited once more, do not expect the game to be released in 2020 or, unfortunately, 2021. Based on my knowledge of narrative video games and Telltale's prior history of game development and the pace, you'll probably be around 2 years older when you get your hands on the game. I hope I'm wrong, but most likely I'm going to be correct in this fact. This is a long project and it's quite sad to say this, but I'm not expecting the game anytime soon. And the earliest I can see it is being released in about Q4 of 2021. No doubt the Rona has definitely delayed some of the work due to social distancing rules, etc, but it's definitely in its alpha stages. The most I'm expecting the new Telltale to have done is a couple testings, somewhat of a script to be formed but not necessarily detailed nor finished, some unique testings here and there, and an implementation of some of the bigger features to have been included or being worked on right now. I don't know if this video is depressing or not, but hopefully I don't depress you too much. Tell me what you guys think about my prediction, and I got 2 questions for you. 1, do you think the game will be released in 2021, or do you think we're looking at more of a 2022 release date? You know, the earliest I say is Q4 of 2021. 2022 would probably be the most solid release date. Probably be the most safe release date to say as well. And the second question, do you guys believe it's in the pre-alpha development, or do you think it's in the alpha development stage? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you around. Wolf.